The air was tense on Capitol View, a new political roundtable show known for its no-holds-barred confrontations. The audience knew tonight would be different. Denzel Washington, beloved actor and principled voice, was seated across from Senator JD Vance, whose recent remarks had gone viral for all the wrong reasons. What no one expected was how fast things would explode. The moment the red "Live" light lit up, JD leaned forward, smug. "So, Mr. Washington," he said with a smirk, "you're suing a sitting senator over free speech? That's rich. You Hollywood types love your drama." Denzel didn't flinch. He leaned in, his voice calm but razor-sharp. "This isn't about free speech, Senator. It's about deliberate defamation. You didn't speak truth. You spit poison, and now you'll answer for it." A murmur rippled through the studio. JD tried to interrupt, but Denzel didn't break eye contact. "You called me a tool of the woke elite and accused me of profiting from victimhood. You don't get to paint a man's life as a lie just to score political points." JD chuckled, dismissive. "Oh come on, Denzel. You've made millions playing oppressed characters and now you want to play one in real life? News flash, no one's buying the act anymore." Denzel's jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. "You crossed a line, Senator. This lawsuit isn't for show. It's for every young black man you try to silence with cheap shots and coded language." The moderator tried to shift the topic, but the room was already locked in. JD shook his head. "This is cancel culture on steroids. And I won't apologize for telling uncomfortable truths." Denzel leaned back, folded his hands, and gave a chilling smile. "No. You'll apologize because you're going to lose." The studio's silence was dense, almost claustrophobic. The audience sat stunned, not by shouting, but by the stillness Denzel brought. He wasn't trying to win a soundbite. He was aiming for the soul of the conversation. And JD Vance, for all his swagger, was visibly rattled. JD forced a smile. "You really think you're doing this for justice? For truth?" "No, Denzel. You're doing it for attention." Denzel didn't blink. "The last thing I want is your attention, Senator. What I want is accountability. And if a $90 million lawsuit is the only language you understand, then so be it." The moderator cleared his throat. "Gentlemen, let's keep this civil." Denzel held up a hand. "No, let's keep it honest. Let's talk about how a U.S. senator uses his platform not to serve but to smear. You took my name, my reputation, and threw it into a political meat grinder." JD's face reddened. "You're a public figure. You don't get to hide behind fragility." "I'm not hiding," Denzel replied, his tone now iron. "I'm standing. For myself. For every artist, activist, and citizen who's tired of being turned into talking points." JD tried to fire back. "You're not the victim here." "Exactly," Denzel said, his voice low and measured. "I'm not playing the victim. I'm showing you what strength looks like when it's not wrapped in a flag or a fundraiser." The crowd erupted, not in cheers, but in awe. The studio wasn't hosting a debate. It was witnessing a shift. A man who had mastered the screen was now rewriting the stage of public accountability. And just then, as the camera panned to JD, something cracked, not his voice, not his smile, but the illusion of control. Denzel had seized it without yelling once. The moderator, clearly thrown off his script, muttered, "We'll be back after this short break." But the break wouldn't stop what had already begun. The show returned from commercial with the tension thick enough to cut. But JD Vance had made a mistake. He believed the break would cool Denzel's fire. Instead, Denzel came back sharper, more focused, his energy controlled like a blade honed in silence. JD straightened his tie and looked to the moderator. "Let's be real. If we can't criticize celebrities without being sued, we've lost the First Amendment. Denzel leaned forward, calm yet commanding. You didn't criticize me, JD. You tried to define me. And that's where your freedom ends, where my dignity begins. The audience murmured again, this time with an audible shift in allegiance. Something about Denzel's clarity, his refusal to be baited, cut through the usual noise of partisan spin. JD scoffed. I simply stated facts. That Hollywood elites like you exploit identity politics to stay relevant. Denzel's stare hardened. You know nothing about what I've lived. Nothing about what I've sacrificed to be in the rooms you were handed access to by legacy and privilege. JD blinked. Denzel didn't let up. The struggle you mock isn't a trend, it's a truth. And you've never had to carry it, JD. You've only capitalized on the backlash to it. Careful, JD snapped, his tone sharper now. You're sounding a lot like a man who thinks disagreement is discrimination. Denzel shook his head slowly. No, Senator. I think willful distortion is discrimination. You turned my interviews into ammunition. You framed my faith, my words, and my history as political theater. And now you're going to learn what accountability feels like in court. A staffer in the background was seen visibly reacting, whispering to someone off camera. The studio had become more than a set, it had become a battleground for something much larger than a lawsuit. Denzel's final words in that segment rang like a bell. You built your brand on telling your truth. Fine. Now I'm telling mine, and this one comes with legal teeth. And with that, the moderator could only whisper, next segment, if anyone's still breathing. Vance tried to regain composure. He adjusted his posture, gave a practiced half-laugh, and tried to reset the tone. But the shift had already happened, he wasn't in control anymore. He was reacting. And Denzel? Denzel was delivering calculated truths, not scripted lines. So what's your endgame here? JD challenged, leaning into the camera. Do you think you're going to scare people like me into silence? Into apologizing for speaking hard truths? Denzel didn't flinch. I'm not here for your silence, JD. I'm here for your consequences. The audience was silent again, not in boredom, but in awe. Denzel continued. You're not on trial in this studio. But you will be. And not just by lawyers. By the millions watching. People are tired of being lied to, poked, and politicized by men who never paid the price for their provocations. JD turned to the moderator. Are we really going to turn every disagreement into a legal threat now? Is that the future of speech in America? Denzel calmly looked at him. You didn't disagree. You slandered. There's a line between opinion and character assassination, and you leapt over it with both feet. Now I'm drawing that line back, with ink and law. For a moment, JD had no response. He flipped through notes, his usual smirk lost to tension. The moderator broke in awkwardly, Senator, do you want to respond? JD finally found his words. He's trying to cancel me. Denzel laughed, a single, sharp exhale. This isn't cancel culture. This is consequence culture. The audience roared, not with cheers, but with a kind of cathartic release. It wasn't just a clash of politics anymore. It was a cultural reckoning. One that no amount of spin or deflection could escape. Denzel leaned back, composed. You built your career off of outrage, JD. You made yourself a fire starter. But you forgot that sometimes, fire spreads back toward the hand that lit it. And just like that, the segment ended, not with applause, but with silence that spoke louder than any shout. The moderator's voice returned with cautious gravity. In a moment that's already breaking the internet, we've just received a statement from Denzel Washington's legal team. And it includes documentation. JD Vance stiffened. Denzel didn't even look over. The screen behind them lit up, not with media spin, but with facts. Court filings. transcripts, statements, and one old, weathered photograph. It was Denzel in his early 20s. Not on a red carpet. In a community center. Holding the hand of a boy wearing oxygen tubes. Caption, 1994, South Central LA. Denzel visits terminally ill children every week, anonymously. JD's voice came low and defensive. What's this, some emotional stunt? Denzel turned toward him with ice in his voice. That's the boy you said I used for performative compassion. He died a month after that picture. And I kept going back. No cameras. No speeches. Just service. The studio was dead silent. The kind of silence that doesn't ask for applause, only reflection. While you were chasing headlines, Denzel continued, I was chasing broken families. Gang-ravaged neighborhoods. Homes that didn't know peace. And you mocked all of it. Not because you disagreed with my politics, but because you never saw me as a human being in the first place. JD swallowed hard. You're exploiting grief. You're distorting sacrifice, Denzel replied. You built a career attacking symbols you don't understand. And you made me one. But I'm not a symbol. I'm a man with a past, with proof, and with a voice you won't silence. The moderator cut in softly. Mr. Washington, do you intend to release the full file to the public? Denzel nodded once. Yes. Tonight. JD jumped in. This is manipulation. No, Denzel cut him off. This is context. And you're not ready for it. A low gasp moved through the studio. Denzel continued, eyes steady. The courtroom will echo louder than this studio. But for now, I'm giving America the truth your campaign never could. As the lights dimmed for the next break, it was clear, JD had crossed a line he didn't even know existed. And Denzel? He was just getting started. When the segment returned, the studio lighting had subtly shifted. Brighter. Sharper. Like it knew what was coming. The moderator opened hesitantly. We're joined now by a surprise guest, someone who requested to speak after watching the first half of this debate. JD Vance shifted in his seat, eyebrows tightening. Another stunt? But when the guest walked out, JD's face drained of color. It was Marcus Bell, a decorated former Marine, now community organizer in Ohio. JD knew him. Denzel had never even mentioned him. Mr. Bell, the moderator asked, why are you here? Marcus walked up, voice calm, not theatrical. Because JD Vance told America that Denzel Washington was a fraud. That his activism was Hollywood fantasy. I served 3 tours. I lost a brother in Iraq. And when I came back broken, the VA turned me away. Guess who showed up? He looked at JD. Not you. Him. JD cut in, clearly rattled. That's anecdotal. No, Marcus snapped. That's lived reality. And I'm not alone. There are hundreds of us, JD. Vets, kids from busted neighborhoods, families who had nowhere to go. You call us props. He called us by our names. Denzel didn't smile. He just watched. Marcus stepped closer to the center of the stage. I watched this man pay for 10 funerals, quietly. I watched him fight city boards to get a gym reopened so kids wouldn't join gangs. And you, JD? You watched it happen and tweeted a meme. The crowd, still silent, leaned in closer. Denzel finally spoke. You brought politics, JD. I brought people. You brought a platform. I brought proof. JD's eyes darted around the studio, trying to read the room. For the first time, his tone wasn't combative, it was desperate. So now we're judging policy based on emotion? No, Denzel said. We're judging character based on evidence. The moderator turned toward Marcus. Do you have any final statement? Marcus nodded. Yes. If JD Vance represents the future of American leadership, we better start teaching our kids how to recognize wolves in suits. And with that, he left the stage. JD looked like he had just realized what kind of storm he'd walked into. And Denzel, as the camera returned from commercial, a subtle change unfolded, not in the lighting, but in the energy. JD Vance was seated forward now, sweating slightly beneath the stage lights. Denzel, by contrast, remained composed, his presence coiled like a loaded spring. But what the audience didn't expect was who would speak next. The moderator glanced to stage left. We're now joined remotely by someone from Senator Vance's own advisory team, Ms. Eliza Harrell, JD's former campaign policy director. JD's jaw visibly clenched. Her image appeared on the screen behind them, polished, professional, voice steady. I didn't plan to speak tonight. But after what I've heard, silence would be cowardice. JD barked out, Eliza, what are you doing? She ignored him. I worked for JD Vance. I believed in his story, a man rising from hardship to lead with compassion. But what I saw behind the curtain was different. Calculated cruelty masked as strategy. Mockery of activists. Dismissal of suffering as weakness. Especially Denzel's efforts. JD shot back, you're bitter because you were let go. No, she snapped. I resigned. Because you crossed lines, and now America sees it. A low murmur moved through the crowd. Eliza continued. We mocked Denzel in closed-door meetings. Called him a drama merchant for caring too loudly. But what you failed to understand, JD, is that real leadership isn't about volume, it's about truth. And tonight, he showed up with more of it than I ever saw in 2 years at your side. JD's voice cracked. This is betrayal. No, she said softly. It's accountability. The moderator intervened. Ms. Harrell, do you believe Senator Vance's approach to public discourse is damaging? I believe, she said, that his career won't survive the truth that just walked into this studio. Eliza's screen faded. JD sat frozen, lips tight. Even the audience felt second-hand embarrassment. And Denzel? He finally stood. The studio didn't cheer. It didn't need to. The silence itself was its own kind of standing ovation. Denzel stood, finally commanding the center of the stage. The weight of the room shifted with him. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His presence alone muted the audience to the point where even the shuffling of a camera dolly was audible. JD sat hunched, trying to look unbothered, but his leg bounced uncontrollably. Denzel leaned into the mic. You talk about rebuilding America, JD. You brand yourself as the voice of forgotten people. But I've got just one question. JD met his eyes, guarded, coiled. Denzel paused. Let the tension breathe. Then. When's the last time you showed up, when no one was watching? The question hit like a gut punch. It wasn't political. It was personal. JD tried to laugh. What kind of question is that? I serve in the Senate. Denzel cut him off, calmly. No cameras. No press. No donors. Just you, and someone in pain. Someone who couldn't give you a single vote. JD fumbled. This isn't a confessional. I'm not here to prove moral purity. You're here, Denzel said, voice sharp now, because you called me a fraud. Because you said my work was self-serving theater. So I'm asking, have you ever done one thing, just one, where the only reward was knowing it helped someone? JD's lips parted, but nothing came out. The audience waited. The silence grew heavy. Even the moderator didn't speak. Finally, JD muttered, this is a setup. And Denzel took a step closer. No, JD. This is a mirror. A ripple of gasps moved through the audience. Someone in the front row whispered, "He's done." Denzel stepped back, looked out into the crowd. We've all made mistakes. But if your leadership begins and ends at the edge of a camera lens, then you're not leading, you're performing. JD sat motionless. And for the first time all night, he had no comeback. The camera operator panned in slowly as JD Vance sat there, face pale, trapped in the quiet glare of accountability. The moderator's voice trembled slightly as she spoke. "Senator Vance, would you like to respond?" JD shifted forward, fingers locking tightly on his notes, but he didn't look at them. Instead, he looked at Denzel with a flicker of panic now visible in his eyes. Then, he smiled, thin, rehearsed, desperate. "I've made mistakes," he began, "but at least I haven't made a career out of martyrdom. Mr. Washington may deliver monologues, but I deliver legislation." A few hesitant claps. Mostly silence. But Denzel remained still. And then, he calmly reached into the inside pocket of his suit. He pulled out a white envelope. "I didn't want to use this," he said, holding it with 2 fingers. "Because when someone is drowning, sometimes the right thing to do is let them climb out." He turned to the moderator. "May I?" She nodded, unsure. Denzel handed her the envelope. "This document is real. And if he wants to talk about authenticity, if JD wants to question who's playing a role, then America deserves to see this." JD's mouth opened, but nothing came out. The moderator unfolded the document, eyes scanning it line by line. She froze. Then, in a whisper, This is from your campaign's pack, Senator." JD's head dropped slightly. She continued. "It outlines intentional smear operations targeting grassroots activists, including Mr. Washington. It details coordinated media narratives, down to phrasing, calling him, quote, a cultural parasite." Gasps from the audience. One person shouted, "Are you serious?" JD tried to laugh. That's out of context." Denzel interrupted, calm and cold. "No, JD. That's who you are when the cameras aren't rolling." Silence again. And then murmurs. "This was never about me being hurt," Denzel said. "It was about a machine, and a man who used it to try to bury people who didn't speak his language." JD looked crushed. Exposed. Denzel glanced at the audience. "You want authenticity? Here it is." And the crowd finally erupted, not in applause, but in realization. The illusion was gone. He hadn't even stood up yet. The applause had died down, but the room still vibrated with the weight of what had just unfolded. JD Vance sat silently, barely moving, staring at the edge of the stage. His defenses were gone. His carefully crafted image lay in ruins. The document Denzel revealed wasn't just evidence, it was a scalpel, cutting through the political theater and exposing something raw beneath. But Denzel didn't look satisfied. He didn't gloat. He stepped forward, turned toward the camera, and for the first time, addressed not the audience in the room, but the millions watching across the country. "You know," he said slowly, "this wasn't supposed to be about destroying anyone. That was never my aim. But when someone builds their platform by stepping on the backs of people in pain, that's when silence becomes complicity." The camera tightened on his face, calm, direct, unwavering. "I came here tonight because I was tired. Tired of seeing voices like mine dismissed as emotional, dramatic, or irrelevant. Tired of watching leaders like JD hide behind strategy while people bleed behind closed doors." He looked straight down the lens. "This isn't about left or right. It's not even about JD Vance anymore. It's about truth. About what kind of country we become when spin wins over sincerity. When cruelty is packaged as policy. When we cheer louder for a takedown than we do for a solution. A deep breath. So to the people watching, the real people, not the pundits, I want you to remember this moment. Because tonight, someone with power got caught saying one thing in public, and doing the opposite in private. And that's not politics. That's betrayal. A beat. Then, a final line, clean, crisp, unforgettable. My name is Denzel Washington. And I will not be quiet, not now, not ever. He stepped away from the mic. The moderator didn't speak. JD didn't move. The screen slowly faded to black. And the internet lit up like wildfire. If you thought this debate was intense, just wait. What Denzel said, what JD couldn't, it's got the whole country talking. And this is only the beginning. Subscribe for more unfiltered moments, raw confrontations, and truths that shake the room. Because on Power Stories, we don't just tell stories, we ignite them.